This is Money Made Simple, the financial podcast that keeps it simple and gets to the point.
Kia ora everyone, and welcome back to Money Made Simple. Today we have another very exciting guest, so a bit of a special episode as we've managed to catch our friend Sarah Kelsey from the OneUp Project. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you for having me.
Well, good. So just for those of you who haven't yet heard of it, hopefully not too many, the OneUp Project is a podcast that's inspired our own actually and covers a range of topics around money, career, lifestyle, focused on encouraging personal growth. So today we're lucky to catch Sarah before she actually skips over to Australia in a couple of weeks, right?
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, more on that soon. And we're going to chat about something that's super interesting and might even spark a little bit of inspiration or opportunities amongst our community. And that is around remote work and what we call the Digital Nomad Visa that's becoming pretty popular in recent years. And of course, we'll put a bit of a financial spin on it, so thinking about the financial and budgeting considerations of such an opportunity. So, Sarah, after all that, let's start just first for those that don't know you, just maybe briefly going through a bit of your own background and journey, kind of tell us how you started OneUp and what the last few years of personal growth have looked like for you.
Yeah, well, thank you for the opportunity. Love the Simplicity team. It's been 4 years now since I started the OneUp Project, which is crazy.
Yeah, old hand.
Yeah, and I'm 25 now, so I started it when I was 21, which is, I guess, quite a significant period of growth in your life, like
Absolutely.
your early 20s. And
becoming an adult, I guess.
yeah,
Right? Yeah.
and recording all of that and sharing my journey is, I think, going to be quite a cool thing to look back on in years to come, although I refuse to look back on it now because I still cringe at myself.
So do we. Yeah, I think it's a podcasting
takes
thing,
time,
right?
totally. But I started the podcast essentially to be a place to make financial literacy more accessible to people. I was trying to find the answers myself to KiwiSaver questions specifically. I was interning at an accounting firm and someone was asking me, had you changed your KiwiSaver fund? And I said, I have literally no clue.
What's a KiwiSaver fund?
Yeah. I knew I was in KiwiSaver and that was it. So that really was
like a little epiphany moment.
Yeah, I guess it was like that FOMO feeling of, am I missing out on something here or what's happening? Especially because I'd always had an interest in like money and thought that that would be something that I would typically be good at or have knowledge on. So when this was brought to my attention that I had absolutely zero knowledge on it, I was like, what is going on? Tried to find the information. It didn't relate to my life stage or who I was. And I love catching up with people. I love having coffees. I love talking. I love conversations. So I thought, why not just make those conversations public?
More accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what started the OneUp Project, and now it's evolved into something completely new and different, and it continues to do that every day.
And isn't that cool about, like, you don't know where it's going to take you, right? And the opportunities that will come up as a result.
Absolutely. I always said since I've started podcasting that there's two common things that my podcast guests always say, and it's stay curious and take risks. And I've tried to implement those two themes throughout everything I do in life. So it completely guides like the evolution of OneUp for sure.
And good segue, because the evolution of what you're about to embark on, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, personal growth, a lot of that, a lot of learnings, I'm guessing, along the way. And I mean, now you're like the KiwiSaver expert, which is cool. And you inspired us to make our own kind of KiwiSaver and investing podcast. So I know, isn't it cool? So that brings us to the now, right? I mean, you've got some incredible plans. I've heard a little bit about them on your own channel and talking to you that you're now starting to actually put in place. So as we've just talked about, things could change or evolve, and you're totally open to that, right? But maybe just tell us a little bit about your proposed plans and kind of where you see that going for 2024.
Yeah. Okay. So I work fully remotely, and I've done that for the last year, which is amazing. Gives you flexibility to work from wherever, whenever.
Yeah. And you did that in Bali for a little bit, right? I did that
in Bali for a little bit, yes. That's when I first got this remote role with a company based in New Zealand. And so I am wanting to continue on that journey and do it in a whole new destination.
It works for you.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a long-term option for me, but it's definitely a huge privilege to have the opportunity to travel and work at the same time. I guess like travel sustainably.
Yeah.
And so that's the next part of the journey, is just to do the same thing in a different destination. I've never been to Europe.
Well, I mean, tell us a little bit about that, because I don't think we've actually said where you plan to go for those that haven't been listening to your podcast.
Yeah, so I've never been to Europe, and a friend of mine who also works remotely, we decided we wanted to do this together, and so we were brainstorming which place we'd want to go to. And a lot of European countries offer digital nomad visas, which allow you to live and work in a place as long as the company you work for exists outside of the EU or like was founded outside of the EU.
Okay. So most New Zealand companies would tick that box, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Australia, New Zealand, whatever, UK now, I guess, as well. So Greece is the country we've decided on for no other reason than it's Greece.
It's a great bloody country. Yeah.
And I'd love to live by the beach, very crystal clear blue waters.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's why Greece, and that's why remote work as well.
And about these digital nomad visas, are most countries, like, do they kind of have the same kind of offering in Europe and maybe across other continents? Or, like, you've probably done a little bit of research, right, as to what was relevant to you and your friend?
Yeah. So definitely lots of different countries offer visas, like countries in South America. Egypt as well, I know, has one. And they all have very similar requirements in terms of you just need to be able to prove that you are working for a company that exists outside of the country and that has offered you remote work, proof that the company is fully remote, basically just proving that your work situation is that of a digital nomad,
right,
and that you are fit and healthy and can enter a country, and I guess like the other usual visa requirements.
I think that would be pretty similar for moving to a country anyway. Yeah, but I guess the specific stuff around digital nomad is that it has to be a company in your own country or a country outside of where you're going that has said, yep, we want you to work remote. What about income requirements?
Yeah, so the Greek income requirement is the highest of the European ones that I've seen.
Good one to choose then.
Yeah, perfect. Makes it real nice and easy for us.
Yeah.
If you're going somewhere like Egypt or countries within South America, you have a much lower threshold.
Okay.
But in some of the other European countries like Spain and Croatia are half the Greek one. So the Greek income requirement is around $6,200 New Zealand per month.
Well, that's pretty spendy.
It is pretty significant.
Yeah.
It's not like you just picked up a couple of hours a week working for someone. Like this kind of needs to be your career.
Yeah, doing the math on that's over 70 grand, right?
You definitely have to be earning a considerable amount of money to do it. Like I said, the Greek one is the highest income requirement. Yeah. So if you go to Spain, for example, that's essentially cut in half. I think it's like $3,500 New Zealand dollars a month.
Which would be around in the vicinity of 30 to 40K, which I mean is probably a lot more accessible. So there are options.
Exactly.
And is it a year that you're going for? Potentially?
Yeah.
Or the visa's a year? Not sure yet?
Yeah, the visa's a year. Okay. You can extend. So a year, we'll say.
Okay. You start with a year, see what happens, right? So budgetary requirements, do you think it will be an expensive year, or do you think that there'll be kind of the ability to save given the cost of living over there? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, there's actually a website, and I've forgotten the name of it conveniently, but it talks about the cost of living in different countries around the world. And so you can kind of like look up the average budget for the Greek economy and see how much food would cost you each week in accommodation. And of course, this is definitely going to differ depending on where you live.
Of course.
But it's
and your lifestyle, right?
Exactly.
But it gives a good benchmark. Well, we'll try and find that out and add it to the show notes. So Greece is, do you think it will be an affordable place to be?
I think it'll definitely be accessible enough.
Right.
I don't think it'll be like living in Bali where you could save your house deposit within the year and then come back to New Zealand and be living up large. I think you'd still be living a lifestyle similar to New Zealand but slightly better, so for what the lifestyle you're already living. For example, accommodation, I think we were looking at a place, my friend Jess and I, it was a 2-bedroom villa on one of the Greek islands and it was going to cost us around 2,000 New Zealand a month, so that's 250 each per week.
Yeah, that's all right, isn't it?
So definitely fully reasonable.
With that sparkling blue water on a Greek island.
Yeah, and I think it wasn't right next to the beach, but it was close enough. Like, a Greek island, beautiful, very accessible to live. Yeah. So with that being your accommodation cost, which I'd already pay in a flat here in New Zealand anyway.
Of course, yeah. Auckland's definitely $250 is a pretty normal budget for renting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then probably allocating the same amount for eating out. You're kind of living quite a similar lifestyle, I would assume, in comparison to New Zealand. But then there might be other things, like in all different countries that you travel to, there will be different things that are more expensive or cheaper.
Absolutely.
So
we know that New Zealand's got some of the most expensive grocery prices in the world, so you might be saving on there.
Yeah.
Okay. It's really interesting to think about. So where you decide to apply for a digital nomad visa is going to impact on that affordability and financing kind of considerations for
Completely.
sure. Bali might be a really good place to go to save, and Greece might be a really good place to go and live a comfortable, great life, but maybe, different considerations on your long-term savings goals.
Yeah, and to your point, it really depends on the lifestyle you want to live, because in Bali, when I was travelling there, I was there for like 5 months, I was spending very similar amounts to what I'd spent in New Zealand, but I was living a much better lifestyle. I'm talking, massages every day and like eating out every day and like ordering anything I wanted. There was no limits on
Yeah,
what I was getting.
no need for home cooked meals, right?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Like I ate out every single day, every meal for 5 months, and that was the life I lived. And you could have done it a lot cheaper than what I did.
Yeah.
So with Greece, I might be spending the same amount, but my lifestyle won't be as extravagant, for example.
Yeah, right. Oh, well, lots to think about there for those that want to. There's a little bit of water under the bridge for you to go in order to get to this plan, though, right? Like, what's the next steps?
Yeah, a lot of admin in order to get it, as is any visa process.
Absolutely.
But this one, it seems relatively straightforward, but I think dealing with any embassy is going to be a slow, ambiguous process. So basically, the next steps from here are just collating the correct documentation, the medical cert or the proof of income or whatever it is, and making sure that we check that with the embassy. Is this the correct documentation? And then we need to lock in an in-person interview.
And that's not right around the corner, is it?
No, that's in Sydney. You have to go to your local, I'm saying this with air quotes, your local Greek embassy, which for any person living in New Zealand is Sydney or Canberra.
Not in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? We're just too little.
You're too little. We have a consulate here, which is in Wellington,
Right.
but the
So
consulate
consulate is
can't do the interview. It has to be an embassy. Yeah.
Sounds like a pain in the ass. But hey, I
Yeah.
bet you it's going to be absolutely worth
If it works out, and I'm saying this now, but honestly, if you're listening to this 3 months from the release date, please check in with
See
me
whether you ended up in Greece.
because I might not be there.
I love that. Oh, well, let's assume that it all works out, and I'm absolutely manifesting that it will.
Thank you.
Keep manifesting. It's going to happen. That's what's most important. But just kind of wanted to touch on a little bit around the impact potentially around your long-term finances, because that's what we're all about here at Simplicity. So is that a factor at all? Like, we know from previous collaborations that you do invest regularly, both in KiwiSaver and investment funds, and you're a firm believer of that whole long-term future planning, which is awesome and one of the reasons we love working with you. Will this year mean a break from both or one of those, or have you thought about that at all yet?
I think it's interesting because I've almost seen the last year as more of a break from investing than I see the next year, because last year I'd come back from traveling, I'd pretty much run my finances to zero and needed to rebuild a lot of stuff again and rebuild a lot of habits and routines that sit as foundations of a good, strong personal finance system.
Financial future.
Yeah. So last year was a lot of rebuilding for me.
Yeah.
And so
that was
meant,
coming back from Bali, right? When you lived your bougie lifestyle. Nice.
Yeah. And how I see most investing, not KiwiSaver investing, but investing
in funds
outside,
or shares or property.
I see that as an optimization on an already existing functioning financial routine, and I didn't have that. So I wanted to rebuild that before I started investing outside of KiwiSaver again. But because I am self-employed, KiwiSaver is always an extremely important priority for me and something I will make sure I put aside.
Say it louder for those in the back.
Yeah, and always I preach having enough or contributing enough that I get the max government contribution every year. That is just a non-negotiable for me. It comes out like it would a tax.
Yeah.
It has to, because otherwise it just won't happen.
It's free money, right, from the government. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
So this year in Greece, do you have any plans or no plans, and that's absolutely fine, around whether you think you will keep investing in KiwiSaver and potentially, if you haven't been so much, going down the investment funds or whatever that is outside of KiwiSaver route?
Yeah, KiwiSaver is always priority number one. Yep. So that will always be a part of, like I said, a functioning financial system of mine.
Yep.
And I guess whether or not I invest outside of that or continue to do that consistently will depend completely on my income situation, which at the moment is more unstable than I would probably like it to be in terms of what I will be doing.
What's next?
Yeah. So as long as I have that consistency of income, then absolutely I'll be prioritizing investing. But I want to make sure that with whatever my income situation looks like, I have those foundations set before I look to the optimization side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So KiwiSaver being those foundations, and then outside of that. And I think that's a really good point. You don't need to be investing in funds and shares or property. It's kind of about having a plan, right? And having the foundations of that plan. So potentially start with KiwiSaver, make sure that you are optimizing that, especially if you're self-employed, and don't automatically get that 3% from your employer. But there can definitely be times, and there's been times in my life where you aren't future planning or investing outside of that. But I think from my point of view, it's just potentially understanding the impacts of that and making sure that fits within your own goals and financial future. I would happily have a break from investing. I'm an absolute believer in investing myself because of my future plans, but I would also in the same vein be fine to have a year off if I needed to, but plan around that for me.
Absolutely.
It's just about understanding, I think, and as long as you understand your plans and know what you're working towards, it doesn't all just fall into place, but you know how to make it fall into place.
Exactly. You're completely right. I actually did a post kind of similar to this recently where I was talking about if I was to start my investing journey again, I would make sure that I had a clear understanding why I was doing it to begin with.
What's your why, right?
Yeah, I think so many people start investing and they don't know why they're actually doing it. They're just doing it because it's good and everyone else is
money.
Yeah, everyone else is doing it and everyone else is putting money towards it, so I don't want to miss out by not doing it. But the thing is, it's not going to benefit you near as much as it would if you had a plan, because then you can actually invest strategically according to your timeline, your risk tolerance, all those different things. Mm-hmm. And like you said, you can actually be prepared and feel confident to take those breaks when you need them, if you need them. Yeah,
kind of all about balance, right? Like you could work 60 hours a week for a company, be working your ass off and be earning lots of money, but like, does it satisfy you? Are you actually enjoying life? I don't know. For me, it comes down to, like we were talking about earlier offline, it comes down to having a good life now, but also having a goal in mind and knowing what that good life later looks like. And that's why financial planning to me is important, you know?
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, I think even though I might make decisions that are spontaneous and I'm off traveling and I move cities or I do this and I do that.
Making us all jealous, yeah.
It all comes back to a central reason why I think that's valuable for me and for my life, because otherwise doing it will never feel satisfying and it will never actually contribute to anything more than just like a spontaneous decision. It needs to actually be aligned to what I think is important for
values.
a long-term plan and my values.
Absolutely. Any other reflections or thoughts around your trip planning, or any thoughts for listeners about if they want to do the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you are wanting to explore the nomadic lifestyle, or if you feel FOMO around that lifestyle, I would maybe think back to our conversation from 2 seconds ago. We were talking about values, and ask yourself if that's something that actually is important to you, or you prefer having that structure and holidaying for the sake of holidaying rather than traveling for the sake of working, because they are two very different things.
Yes.
And I have struggled with trying to travel and work at the same time, but not having committed to either one and hating either side. Like, I don't feel like I'm on holiday and I don't feel like I'm working, and it's just an unsatisfying experience. And I don't think a lot of people talk about that. They just talk about how great it is to be sipping on a coconut while you're on your laptop, but actually
it's almost like for the gram, right?
Yeah. At the end of the day, it doesn't make you happy, then there's just really no point in doing it. You may as well have just taken a week off and gone to Bali and not worked.
Yeah, there's totally different ways of travelling. I think there's a big continuum. It's not just 1 week or working and living. There's the whole in-between. I mean, my hubby and I love to go for a few weeks or up to a month to places, and that's kind of like an in-between. But I love that, like getting your priorities sorted about what will actually fill your cup or make you happy. Is it working in a beautiful place but working hard, or is it going and deserving holidays? Yeah, something that's really important to think about rather than just thinking it sounds super glamorous and fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. That was lots of fun and very, very inspiring. I might have to have a bit of a chat with our MD, Sam, about whether he's happy.
You in Greece.
Happy me to head off into the sunset for a year or two. Super excited for you. A little bit gutted that we won't see you for a little while, but maybe we'll see you online.
No doubt.
Yeah, I don't think it will be the end of our collaborations with Sarah, but that is kind of all we have time for this week. Next time we will be back to our financial basics, so make sure you tune in. Thank you so much, Sarah, for making the time before you head away on your beautiful travels to chat with us and giving us a little taste of the digital nomad life. And yeah, thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, everyone. See you.
See ya. This podcast contains personal opinions and is intended to provide educational information only. It doesn't relate to your particular financial situation or goals and is not financial advice or recommendations. Simplicity New Zealand Limited is the issuer of the Simplicity KiwiSaver scheme and investment funds. For product disclosure statements, please visit Simplicity's website, simplicity.kiwi.